To Morning Joe's ongoing coverage of Pride Month. Joining us now is the president and CEO of the LGBTQ media advocacy organization GLAAD, Sarah Kate Ellis. She's here with new numbers from GLAAD's annual study measuring Americans' attitudes toward the LGBTQ community. Also with us is the coordinator of humanities and LGBT collections at the New York Public Library, Jason Bowman. He's also the editor of the Stonewall Reader. A lot to get to. Thank you so much for both of you being here.
Thanks for being here. So Sarah Kate, what's the headline of this study?
So the headline is that year over year we're losing millennials and accepting LGBTQ Americans. And what we did was that we went back into the field to understand the why. That's the big question. Why are we losing? It's Gen Zers, actually. It's 18 to 34-year-olds. We do this, we conduct this with Harris Poll, and they've lost their comfortability with LGBTQ people. So there's two reasons. One is the Trump factor, right? When you hear the rhetoric and you see the policy rollbacks, there's been 114 attacks against the LGBTQ community since Trump has become president from this administration. And when you see these attacks, the young are impressionable. We've always said that as a society, and we're seeing that impression. The other thing is a newness factor. And so within the LGBTQ community, especially the youngsters, are identifying more broadly on the spectrum of gender identity and sexual orientation. And that newness, they're coming up and bumping up against on a daily basis. And so they're figuring it out as they go along.
I think these are still those shocking numbers. Put those numbers back up, because we have always assumed, I mean, for over the past 20 years, when we moved from all the ballot initiatives in 2004 to so quickly moving towards marriage equality, we always assumed, everybody always assumed, it was the youngest Americans who were the most progressive on issues like these.
We took them for granted, I think, at the end of the day. And so I think also what's really important is that you see this decline since Trump came into his presidency. And so words matter and actions matter, and we're seeing it have a direct effect. When you ask people, are they for LGBTQ equality, 80% of Americans are for it.
But I want to put this up, because this is shocking as well. Millennials uncomfortable learning that a family member is LGBTQ. And again, I say this as a Southern state school conservative, former Republican, Southern Baptist. I'm shocked by those numbers, because most of the people we know,
we just expect them to be going in different directions.
I'm not just talking around here. I'm talking about, in the South. Or like, okay, well, your choice.
So I think that there's been a misstep on our side, which is we've taken them for granted. We've thought that they're going to be incredibly progressive, this next generation, and the right wing has targeted them on colleges' campuses and through websites, has targeted them to be anti-LGBTQ. And so I think that's getting in there as well.
Wow.
Okay, all right, go ahead, Mike.
So Jason, what do you do? But this is, if you remove LGBTQ, this basically is right and wrong. What do you do to re-educate young people today?
I mean, that's the reason we're doing exhibition Love and Resistance, and also this book, The Stonewall Reader, and it's really targeted to young people so that they can realize there was an LGBTQ civil rights movement. A lot of times we realize there was African-American civil rights movement, a women's movement, but we don't really realize that there's been 50 years of concentrated activism by LGBTQ people in the United States fighting for civil liberties and for freedoms, and that we have to continue that fight today.
So tell us about the Stonewall Reader and also what we're doing in collaboration here to spread the message.
So Stonewall Reader, it takes stories before, during, and after Stonewall. So it's the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots, which was conflict between LGBTQ patrons at the Stonewall Inn bar 50 years ago, 1969, and really is a turning point in LGBTQ liberation and civil rights movements. There's small groups in the 1960s across the country, but it becomes thousands and thousands of people, becomes a mass movement after Stonewall. And so we're really doing all of this to bring that message to America, and that people can really read about this and experience it for themselves.
Right. So, Sarah Kate, my question to you is, would acceptance be helped by the fact that we now have a top-tier presidential candidate in Pete Buttigieg? identify he is gay, and it seems to almost
Which, by the way, which Trump said when asked, said, "Oh yeah, married, that's totally fine."
the president certainly did not criticize that.
Yes. I think that helps a lot having Mayor Pete at the top of the ticket, because not only is he gay and identifies as gay, he's also Christian. And that's been weaponized against our community for decades now, that if you have to be one or the other, and that's not the case. You can be both. And he's living proof that you can be both. I also think that I'm going to be at the debates in Wednesday and Thursday, and we're looking for, and we're pushing on, how are they going to cover our rights? Because you know what? Here's the simple truth. We are not equal in this country. 80% of Americans, according to our poll, believe that we should be equal. We can still be fired in half our jobs, fired from our jobs in half the states. We can still be put through conversion therapy. We could still be denied housing. As you see, the Supreme Court debates whether or not to serve us a piece of cake. So we have a lot to go.
Then, Jason, how can Americans across the country access what you're doing with the New York Public Library in collaboration here?
At New York Public Library, the exhibition's on until July 13th, and also the book is available wherever books are sold, and they can read it. But also, it's interesting, just the arc of this is 50 years ago, homosexuality was illegal in the United States and was a mental illness, and so we've made these strides, but also so many of these things still continue
as
today.
Well. Sarah Kate Ellis and Jason Bowman, thank you so much for being on the show with us.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
And that's